Okay, welcome everyone to our Shaping the Future webinar series. Thank you for joining us today. Firstly, let me acknowledge Dr. Indira Rampasad, NIHU's chairman, members of the NIHU's Board of Governors, Dr. Fazal Ali, president of NIHUST, Mr. Johnny Musa Bayana, director of the International Labour Organization, the ILO, Caribbean Office, Ms. Lovan Superville, Vice President, Science and Technology, acting at NIHUST, Ms. Sharon Parmanan, Senior Economist at NIHUST, Ms. Ilka Webster, Skills and Lifelong Learning Specialist at the International Labour Organization, Mr. Akeem Timothy, Economist 1 at NIHUST and ILO management and staff, educators, leaders, industry representatives, and valued stakeholders. Good morning and welcome to the Shaping the Future webinar series. We are pleased to have you joining us here today, of course, as we take a closer look and deep dive at some of the findings from the assessment of 21st century skills across emerging sectors study, which was a collaborative initiative between NIHUST and the ILO. This session today is part 2 of our session 2, I should say, of our 5-part webinar series, and it is aimed to facilitate conversation and discussion and collaboration on the findings of the 5 sectoral reports, today being session 2, where we deep dive, of course, into aviation, and we really look forward to the session today. Today's session is about more than just presenting research. It's about understanding the findings and what they mean for our nation of Trinidad and Tobago and what they mean for the future workforce. So before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping points to note. Your microphones, as you would have realized, are muted. So unless you are invited to speak, they will remain on mute. You can use the chat or the raise hand function for questions during the discussion and Q&A session. And questions, as I said, will be addressed during the discussion and Q&A segment. So don't worry, don't fear. We encourage participants to be very active, to stay during the length of the webinar today, as well as we will have a number of key findings and insights from the beginning to the end. And of course, we will have a feedback form at the end closer to the end of the session that we would like you to complete, just to let us know how we can improve for future sessions as well. So before we hand over to the first presenter, I would like you guys in the audience just to take one moment to refer to the poll on screen, which gives us an idea of the industry mix in today's session. So if you can kindly complete the poll on screen so that we would be able to identify those who are with us in the audience today and the industries that are being represented in the audience today. Right, so we give a few seconds for the poll to be completed. Right, thank you so much to those of you all in the audience who would have completed the poll. We really do appreciate it. So without further ado, we would like to jump right into some of the key findings and explore the research and what the research is telling us, and then have a lovely discussion about it after. So to present some of the key findings of the aviation sector report today, I would like to invite Ms. Sharon Parmanan, Senior Economist at NIHUST, to take the floor and share those presentation findings with us.
Thank you, Kendall. Let me share my screen. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yeah, we can see.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this edition of the Shaping the Future webinar series. Let us start with an overview of what we will cover in today's presentation. Our focus is the aviation workforce. Specifically, we will examine what employers need today, where skills gaps and recruitment challenges exist, and how the sector can prepare for technological and workforce changes in the years ahead. We will begin by looking at the broader context and discussing why aviation is important to Trinidad and Tobago for connectivity, trade, tourism, and regional competitiveness. Next, we will examine the employer evidence, including who participated in the study and what the current workforce profile looks like across the sector. We will then explore vacancies, recruitment experiences, graduate work readiness, and the 21st century skills that employers considered most important for success in the aviation industry. After that, we will look ahead to the future by examining priority STEM occupations and the technological changes expected to reshape aviation operations and workforce requirements over the next several years. Finally, we will conclude with recommendations from employers and the research findings, focusing on practical actions that can be taken by industry, education, and training providers and government to help build a stronger, more adaptable, and future ready aviation workforce. Let us begin by looking at why aviation matters. Aviation plays a critical role in supporting Trinidad and Tobago's connectivity, economic activity, and international engagement. Through airports, air transport services, cargo operations, and supporting aviation infrastructure, the sector facilitates the movement of people, goods, and services both regionally and internationally. The sector also supports tourism, trade, logistics, and investment by enabling efficient transportation links that connect Trinidad and Tobago to global markets. Beyond transportation, aviation serves as a regional capacity hub through activities such as airport administration, air traffic management, aircraft maintenance and inspection, training, and air navigation services. Aviation is more than a transportation service. It is a critical component of national infrastructure that supports connectivity, commerce, resilience, and economic development. As aviation continues to evolve, technology is also becoming increasingly important to its future, offering opportunities to improve safety, operational efficiency, passenger services, environmental performance, and competitiveness. At the same time, employers are now facing changing workforce requirements driven by technological innovation, evolving regulatory standards, and growing sustainability expectations. In addition to technical and STEM competencies, workers will now need strong 21st century skills, such as digital literacy, critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to work with emerging technologies, and support more sustainable aviation. This is where the findings of this assessment become particularly important. They help us understand where the workforce is today, where industry needs it to be, and most importantly, provide evidence to inform the strategies, partnerships, and actions needed to close that gap. Before looking at the findings, I will just briefly go through how the study was conducted. For the aviation sector, using the CSO database and supplementary desk research, a sampling frame of approximately 42 aviation-related establishments was developed for the study. From this frame, a sample of 24 employers was selected to participate in the survey. Of these, 10 employers participated in the study, resulting in a response rate of 42%. Data collection was conducted at the end of 2023 using a mixed methods approach combining quantitative and qualitative data collected through the establishment survey. The study focused on skills demand, skills gaps and mismatches, vacancy and recruitment, STEM labor needs, TVET, and the effects of technological change on the industry. The methodology followed the Establishment Skill Survey guidelines of the ILO, the European Training Foundation, and the European Centre for Development of Vocational Training. The questionnaire design was guided mainly by the ILO core skills framework, which was used to capture data on workforce competencies essential for the future of work. It defines 19 core skills, which are grouped into four main categories: social and emotional skills, such as communication and teamwork, cognitive and metacognitive skills, such as problem solving and critical thinking, basic digital skills, such as the use of hardware and software, and basic skills for green jobs, such as environmental awareness. The ILO's STEM and TVET curriculum guide was also used to assess TVET competencies within the workforce. Stakeholder consultations were also undertaken mainly to ensure the relevance and validity of the survey instrument. While the results are based on a relatively small number of participating employers, they provide an important evidence base for informing these discussions on workforce planning, skills development, and future workforce needs within the aviation sector. Let us now look at the profile of the participating establishments. The results indicate that the aviation sector is characterized by a mature and experienced business base. 90% of the participating establishments had been operating for more than 20 years, demonstrating substantial institutional and operational knowledge within the industry. Most participating establishments were small to medium-sized enterprises, with 60% employing between 10 to 49 workers, and the remaining establishments employed 50 or more workers. In terms of economic activity, air cargo operations accounted for the largest proportion of respondents at 60%, followed by aircraft maintenance and repairs at 20%. Commercial air travel and industry regulation each represented 10% of the participating establishments. These characteristics are important because they suggest that while the sector benefits from considerable industry experience, workforce needs may vary depending on organizational size and function. The findings also reflect that there's a range of aviation-related activities and provides perspectives from cargo services, maintenance operations, passenger transport, and regulatory environments. Turning now to the workforce composition and STEM capacity. All participating establishments reported employing both men and women. 70% employed staff with STEM degrees, indicating a meaningful presence of STEM qualified personnel within the sector. Half of the respondents had IT occupations, while 30% had engineering and 30% had environmental sciences as well. Looking at occupational distribution, all of the establishments employed managers, while 70% employed professionals, technicians, and associate professionals, and clerical support workers. In terms of gender representation, male employees outnumbered female employees overall and in most occupational groups, including managerial, professional, and technical roles. Women were more strongly represented in IT occupations and health-related occupations, while there were more males in engineering and natural sciences occupations. A key finding is that STEM capacity exists within the sector but remains concentrated within a relatively limited number of occupational fields, with gender differences evident across several roles. This suggests opportunities to broaden STEM participation and strengthen gender diversity across technical occupations. Turning now to vacancies and recruitment. 60% of the employers reported having a current vacancy at the time of the survey. There were more non-STEM vacancies, than STEM vacancies. 40% of the employers reported non-STEM vacancies and 30% reported STEM vacancies. Recruitment activity was also relatively strong. 70% of the employers reported filling at least one vacancy during the 12 months preceding the survey. However, only 20% reported successfully filling STEM vacancies, suggesting greater challenges in sourcing STEM talent compared with non-STEM workers. Current STEM vacancies were reported primarily within engineering and IT fields. In addition, half of the employers indicated difficulty recruiting technicians and associate professionals in STEM-related occupations. Overall, the findings suggest that while vacancies exist across the sector, STEM positions appear to be more challenging to recruit for, particularly in technical occupations. This slide explores why employers are experiencing these difficulties. The employers who responded to the survey identified a number of challenges when attempting to recruit STEM talent. A half of the employer reported difficulties filling mathematics and statistics roles, while one-third experienced difficulties recruiting engineering professionals. One-fifth reported difficulties recruiting IT professionals. The occupation most frequently identified as difficult to fill was Computer and Information Systems Manager. Employers pointed to several underlying recruitment barriers. The most frequently cited were poor terms and conditions and education levels below employer requirements, both reported by 75% of the establishments. A half of the employers also cited a low number of applicants lacking the required skills, and difficulties recruiting technicians and associate professionals. These findings suggest that recruitment challenges are influenced by both availability of suitably qualified candidates and the conditions employers offer. Employers are facing challenges in finding applicants with the required education, skills, and experience, while factors such as terms and conditions may also affect the attractiveness of available positions. Addressing these challenges will require a combination of workforce development, strong education industry alignment, improved career promotion, and greater support for attracting and retaining STEM talent. Employers who participated in the survey placed a high value on the full range of the 19 core skills identified by the ILO and assessed in this study. 13 of the 19 skills were considered important by every employer that participated. Communication and collaboration emerged as the most universally valued skills, while with employers identifying them as important. Employers also highlighted skills related to sustainability, including energy and water efficiency and waste reduction. When responding to internal organizational changes, employers identify people-related issues, technology, and profitability as major drivers. Communication and adaptability were considered the most important skills for responding to these changes. Externally, competition was the most significant driver of change, followed by climate change, digitalization, and regulatory developments. Looking ahead, employers emphasize the importance of communication, adaptability, digital skills, creativity, and innovation as critical capabilities for navigating future changes. The message is clear. Technical expertise alone is no longer sufficient. Employers increasingly value workers who can communicate effectively, collaborate, adapt to change, and contribute to innovation. A particularly important finding relates to skills mismatches. Across the assessed skill areas, employers rated skill importance higher than the proficiency levels they observe among their employees. The largest gap was in strategic thinking, followed by emotional intelligence, conflict resolution and negotiation, problem solving and decision making, and self reflection and learning to learn. At the same time, employers identify collaboration and teamwork, information analysis, planning and organizing, and basic digital skills as some of the strongest existing capabilities among employees. The smallest gap was observed in basic green job skills. Although 80% of the employers indicated that these deficiencies had not yet affected operations, the findings suggest a potential future risk. If left unaddressed, these skills gaps could limit innovation, technology adoption, productivity improvements, and long term competitiveness. Turning now to graduate readiness, employers reported both positive signs and areas for further improvement. 60% considered recent graduates to be somewhat prepared for work, while 20% felt graduates were well prepared. Graduates performed particularly well in basic digital skills, with employers reporting high levels of proficiency in this area. However, employers continued to experience challenges sourcing graduates with strong problem solving and decision making skills, as well as emotional intelligence. Career management was identified as one of the weakest areas among graduates, suggesting that many entrants may still struggle with workplace adaptation and professional development. Overall, the findings suggest that graduates are entering the workforce with useful technical and digital foundations, but additional support is needed to strengthen behavioral, interpersonal, and problem solving capabilities. Looking at the STEM labor demand, current demand was relatively limited. However, employers expected workforce needs to change over the following 5 years as aviation became increasingly digital and technology driven. Current demand included electrical engineers, aeronautical engineers, IT engineers, web and digital interface designers, and health, safety, and environmental officers. Looking ahead, employers anticipated stronger demand for web and digital interface designers, HSC officers, IT network administrators, mechanical engineers, and avionics engineers. These projected changes reflected the sector growing emphasis on digital systems, safety management, engineering expertise, and technological modernization. Overall, the findings suggested that future workforce requirements would increasingly combine technical engineering expertise with digital and IT skills. Technology is expected to play a transformative role in the future of aviation. The research identified several key technologies expected to shape the sector, including AI and machine learning, biometrics and smart airport technologies, automation, the Internet of Things, big data analytics, and green aviation technologies. These technologies have the potential to improve operational efficiency, reduce costs, strengthen safety and security, enhance passengers' experiences, and improve environmental performance. Examples include predictive maintenance systems, automated passenger processing, real time aircraft monitoring, and data driven operational decision making. However, adopting these technologies will require significant investments in infrastructure, workforce training, technical expertise, financing, and collaborative partnerships. The findings reinforce the importance of preparing workers today for the technological changes expected tomorrow. Employers provided a number of recommendations for strengthening workforce development. For tertiary education institutions, employers emphasize better alignment between academic programs and industry requirements, greater practical application of theory, and stronger integration of life skills. For government, recommendations included promoting STEM education in schools, increasing STEM related incentives for businesses, expanding apprenticeship opportunities, and strengthening STEM training for teachers. Employers also highlighted actions for the private sector, particularly increasing internship and training opportunities, promoting STEM careers among young people, and expanding technology adoption within businesses. Overall, employers emphasize the importance of collaboration among government, industry, education providers, and training institutions to ensure that the future workforce possesses the skills needed to support a changing aviation sector. Based on the findings of the study, five broad areas of action emerge. First, strengthen education industrial alignment through curriculum co-design and expanded work-based learning opportunities. Second, investing in continuous skill development through upskilling and reskilling initiatives focused on technical, digital, green, and transferable skills. Third, building a stronger and more inclusive STEM pipeline by encouraging greater participation in STEM education and careers, particularly among women and underrepresented groups. Fourth, supporting technology adoption and innovation, especially among smaller enterprises that may face resource constraints. And fifth, strengthening labor market intelligence through ongoing monitoring of skills demand and workforce trends. Overall, the findings point to the importance of strong partnerships, lifelong learning, inclusive participation in STEM, technological adoption, and evidence based workforce planning in building a future ready aviation workforce. As part of the assessment, we also examined the role of TVET in supporting aviation workforce development. However, the response to the TVET section was limited, which constrained the depth of analysis possible for this sector. Nevertheless, the consultations and overall findings highlighted opportunities for TVET to play a stronger role in meeting the evolving skills needs of the aviation sector. Expanding industry relevant programs, particularly in STEM fields and emerging technologies, can play an important role in addressing skill shortages and supporting sector growth. By increasing practical training opportunities and strengthening links between training institutions and employers, TVET can help develop the technical competencies needed for the future aviation workforce. To conclude, this assessment highlights that the future of aviation will not only depend on technology and infrastructure, but also on the people who will support and drive the sector forward. The findings point to the need for stronger education, industrial alignment, lifelong learning, greater STEM participation, and continued development of technical, digital, green, and transferable skills. Ultimately, collaboration across government, industry, education, and training institutions will be critical to build a future ready workforce. The goal is to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago has the skills and talent needed to support a safe, competitive, innovative, and sustainable aviation sector. Thank you for your time and attention, and I will now pass you back to Mr. Harry.
Thank you so much, Ms. Parmanan, for that very insightful presentation. in terms of some of the key findings as it relates to the aviation sector. Of course, on our website, and we will post the link in the chat as well to all of the sector reports. All of the sector reports, we'll post that in the chat as well, so that you'll be able to browse the reports and the briefs, just in case that you have not had a chance to do so. In those reports, you would find, of course, much deeper insights and information. So thanks once again, Ms. Parmanan, for highlighting these key insights from the study. And now that we've heard what the research tells us, I'm sure that the audience today has a lot to say and a lot to give their perspective on as well. So we would now switch to our discussion and Q&A segment. And just to give an idea once again as to how this segment would operate, we have a few discussion questions that we would like to pose to the folks in the audience today. So we will go through those questions briefly and get your feedback on them, because it's very important to shape in the future of this, not only this study, but also the insights needed for our country of Trinidad and Tobago. And then we would open the floor to any additional questions or perspectives that the audience will have. All right, so before I go to that discussion questions, or to start the discussion questions, let me present the panel that would be receiving your questions and also responding to your comments. We have online with us, once again, Ms. Lovan Superville. She is the Vice President of Science and Technology acting at NEHUST. Ms. Sharon Parmanan, Senior Economist at NEHUST. Ms. Ilka Webster is also online with us, and she is the Skills and Lifelong Learning Specialist at the ILO. And Akim Timothy, Economist 1 at NEHUST as well, would be part of this discussion and Q&A. So let's get the discussion started. Of course, if you have any comments to make, you are free to make them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will prompt you to go ahead and make your contribution. So the first question, it really deals with technology, workforce skills, and training response. So we ask you, the audience, and all our very, very, very valued stakeholders online with us today, as AI, automation, data systems, and other technologies change aviation jobs, as we just heard, what skills or training programs really should be prioritized? And reminder, this is where we would like to hear from you as being the folks in the industry and the sector. So what skills and training programs should really be prioritized as things have changed and are continuing to change drastically? And the question is up on the screen as well as in the chat. So just in case you missed it, we're just talking about a few discussion questions where we would like to hear your feedback in terms of some of these topics.
Right. So, Kendall, I just want to remind our participants that the research and what, based on Sharon's presentation, the research told us that or identified that there was an increasing demand for skills in areas such as data analysts, systems engineering, cybersecurity, and environmental management. And of course, we just want to hear from our audience whether they agree with what the report or the information was showing, or if there are additional areas that they think that should be included as well. And of
Thank you
course,
so much, Ms.
we
Proven.
also recognize and employers also noted that not just the technology, but the 21st century skills were also important as well. So we want to hear from our audience if they agree with the research findings, or if they noted additional information that they would like noted or included.
I'm Sina Barindra So. I hope I got it correct. Apologies if I didn't.
Yeah, it's actually pronounced Sao, but thanks for the thing. Are you hearing me?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so well, as indicated by the report, there is definitely a skills gap in terms of engineering capacity. Okay, So Trinidad has a training institution right now at UTT in Camden to train people for engineering. So I think that is a field we need to focus on, especially when you look at the aviation services sector, like aircraft maintenance and repair. That is actually a potentially lucrative earner of foreign exchange for Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that is one field we need to start to develop, because if we could get the engineering capacity, we could do things like develop a proper EMO industry here and try to attract like foreign airlines to maintain the aircraft in Trinidad, because we'll have certain advantages, having better labor costs. We're not susceptible to things like natural disasters as much as other countries. So in my opinion, I think the one of the fields we need to develop in Trinidad will be the engineering side, definitely maintenance and engineering. And we do have some level of capacity to do it because we have UTT aside. Aside from that, we know AI, automation, everything is becoming part of everything now, not just the aviation industry. So that's another skills gap I think we'll see there. But I think specifically to the aviation sector, we definitely need to start building that engineering capacity. And we have some sort of capacity to it. So that's just my contribution. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for that, Mr. Saul. And
Welcome.
would anybody from the panel would like to have a response on that or contribution?
Thanks for that. Yes, engineering would have been one of those as well. And I take your point in terms of Trinidad.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because that was a great point that you bring up, because that contribution aligns well with the findings of the report, because we saw that engineering and aircraft maintenance were areas targeted for skills development and could support the sector growth. So I think that is very valuable.
Thank you so much to the panel. All right, so we can move on to the second question in terms of the discussion today. So now we're talking about building a diverse STEM talent pipeline, and we heard mention of STEM in the report quite a few times. So what are studies and careers? Is there any feedback on this? What is one practical action that could encourage and prepare more young people, especially women and girls, pursue in-demand aviation-related STEM studies? And we do note that we are experiencing some instability with the internet connectivity. I think this has been happening since yesterday, so we do apologize if there's any interference. So again, you can feel free to pose your perspective in the chat, or you can signal with the raise hand feature on the Zoom. And of course, we would like to hear your feedback on this, because we noted in the study as well and in the presentation just now that there were some gaps, particularly with where there were a lower level of women and girls in some of these jobs and roles.
Yes, as well as Kendall, I think it's particularly important when young people hear aviation, they must not immediately think of pilots or flight attendants. We heard about the need for engineers and the other areas, and therefore the workforce is much broader. And we need to expose students, especially girls, to that wider spectrum of careers. And we could do that through career talks, mentorship, showcasing successful females within the industry, and of course the broad spectrum of careers that are available to promote young people as well as especially girls in such careers.
Excellent. Now, just tacking back just before anybody, or while anybody gives their response to this particular discussion question, I saw earlier Christian Vasquez would have mentioned business process operations, automation, understanding the needs of business environment and the objectives of clients. It bridges between hard skills and soft skills and applying them well. Understanding the business, in this case of aviation, and no soft skills via soft skills only, and low understanding of aviation is not enough. It's a balance. So if I'm to take from that, I understand that you're trying to give the perspective that we must not forget about the soft skills in terms of these discussions as well and what is needed in the industry. So thank you very much for making that contribution, Christian Vasquez.
Yes, that comes out clearly in the research and in the report, speaking not only to those technology or technological skills, but those 21st century skills that were measured, which including problem solving, decision making, strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, learning to learn, and the value that the employers would have placed on those were extremely important as well. So definitely in line with what the research is showing.
Definitely. And we have a response to this particular question as well from Samantha Ramki soon, where she says, I believe more internships and early exposure can influence more women and girls into this industry. So any thoughts from the panel on that before we move on to the next discussion question in terms of early internships and exposure?
Yeah, well, I think we jumping into uh, the is it the question right after? I know we have one that speaks to internships and apprenticeships.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hold off on responding to that because um, that is something that we would discuss as well.
Okay, so we will come to that question, but just before we go to that, a comment here from Janine Jewel Brown Sobers, saying, for someone who has graduated from UTT in the field of aircraft maintenance and has been unable to get into any job training programs, what can that individual do now? Where can help apply to now?
Yeah. Kendall, let's jump right into question three because I seeing we going into that
We're
direction,
going
which
into it.
speaks to
Yes,
the importance of practical experience, work-based learning, and of course, trying to encourage institutions to or for government as well to kind of develop some formal internship or opportunities for persons within this industry. So let's jump
sure,
right into that question.
definitely. And just before I do, there is a comment from Ronald Ramlogan, where maybe an immersion program for women and girls provide hands-on exposure from an early age, which I think is a great idea. So the
Mm-hmm.
next question, as we see which we are heading in the direction based on your feedback, the practical or is the practical experience and work-based learning. So this really looks at what is one practical action that employers, education, training institutions, or government could take to give students and
Yeah, so a very practical action will be develop structured aviation internship or apprenticeship framework, that can bring employers and training institutions together. And we are hearing it coming out for that structured approach from our participants here today. So it's not just like hoping that a young person is able to attain some sort of work experience, but that there is some structure and formal framework. And I think this is also one of the clearest messages coming out of the research, so that we break that cycle where graduates need experience to get the job, but then how do they access the workplace to acquire that experience? You know?
I think too an important point we have to look at too is if industry can provide more internships and apprenticeships and what is preventing them from doing so as well too. So we have to look at the challenges that the industry face as well too.
Thank you for that, Ms. Superbella and Ms. Parmanan. We're talking practical experience and work-based learning. I'm seeing here, Mr. Ramlogan, once again, acquiring experience is one thing, but recognizing that experience across employers is another challenge. Do you care to expand on that, Mr. Ramlogan? And of course, we welcome persons, if you'd like to speak using the microphone, just use the raise hand or identify it in the chat. All right, Mr. Ramlogan, be unmuted. Go ahead, Mr. Ramlogan.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, colleagues. I'll comment briefly. This is sort of related to conversations that may have taken place before about things like micro-credentialing, placement programs, work-based learning, internships, for example. Those are all things that give experience, yes. But then how do you know whether that experience is going to be recognized when employers change? And this is where maybe micro-credentials can possibly be considered for completed placements. So there are some standards in terms of what skills are learned and how that equates to the ability of those individuals to do certain types of work that may exist across different employers, notwithstanding maybe little specific company requirements or systems, but that's just one idea I had in terms of thinking out loud, make to close the loop. So given the exposure and the experience, yes, but also ensuring that that experience is recognized so that if people change jobs, it doesn't get lost in translation.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, because I think while employees and graduates and would have acquired transferable skills, because we have different various sectors or subsectors, they might not be as valuable if they move into another area. So it really would put them at a disadvantage in terms of the opportunities available to them.
Right, thank you, Sharon. I'm seeing a comment here. Good morning, all. The OGT program and internship program is one avenue that can expose new entrants in the labor market to employment opportunities in the sector. Any feedback on that?
Yeah, hello here. I just would like to add that apologies, I'm not in the country. My connection is not really good. But I would like to add to the discussion question number 3, a result that appeared in all of our reports, that is more participation of employers in training. This is very clear when they talk about the better alignment, but as well as about the recognition, because it's not only enough, of course, that internships and apprenticeships are provided or any other kind of program that exposes them to practical training. Employers also need to be involved in curriculum development, in determining what the skills needed, because these are the skills that are needed in their businesses, and more relations between employers and education institutions are much needed to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that perspective, Ilka.
And
right.
Kendall, in terms of the OJT program, agreed that the OJT program does provide an important entry point for individuals and give them the practical work exposure, but the challenge really is that making sure that the skills and experience that they gain is recognized and aligned to what the employers value as well too.
It's an excellent point. And thank you for mentioning that as well, Sharon. So if there are any more comments, you can feel free to continue contributing via the chat, but we will move on to the next discussion question. And this has to do with, before I move on, I see Mr. Phillips, Samuel Phillips has a comment here on the last question. He says, I believe systems and programs need to be put in place because there are a lot of people with degrees out here and they can't find jobs. So the government can open an avenue for these individuals to get hands-on experience and even further provide employment after the training experience. If there are things already in place, there needs to be better advertising so that citizens can know what is available to them. And that is an excellent point as well, referenced there by Mr. Phillips. Thank you for your contribution. I think we would have discussed some of that. So moving on to the education industry government collaboration. So how do all these sectors, public and private, education, everybody come together? How can employers, education, training institutions, and government regularly share information on changing aviation skill needs? Who should bring these groups together? This is a very pertinent question, and I think even in some of the discussion we were having just now, some of this even came up, in terms of the education and training institutions, government, and the employers. So
Kendall, we are not hearing you.
really,
I am not
that
hearing.
ecosystem, sharing the information of the changing aviation skills. Are we back on now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, so I was saying we'll move now to the discussion question number 4, which really deals with that ecosystem of government, education, and industry, the employers, who really needs to bring these groups together and share the information in terms of the updated skills that are needed for this aviation sector. And I'm seeing a question here / comment in the chat from Mr. Ram Logan. Do we have a skills council for this sector? Do we have an education skills council? An aviation skills council? Mr. Phillips says there should be a governing body. All excellent points, because someone needs to disseminate and share the information as to what are the skills needed, how you could get them, and apply them to the jobs that are out there as well. So who really should be sharing this information?
Agreed. And I'm not
So
sure if we
go ahead, Akeem,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, not sure if we have skills council. I'm not sure, but one should be established if there isn't one. Well, I think that's very important because employers could, share vacancy and skills gaps data. Institutions could review the different programs against those needs, and no government could coordinate policy and like funding and labor market information. But I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone could in the chat could speak to that if it has a council established already, because I'm not sure.
Right. Just going back to the chat here with a few comments with regards to bringing stakeholders together. We have an industry regulator in the form of the TTCAA. And if someone could just put exactly what that acronym suggests, I know what it is, but just for the benefit of everyone in the meeting today. But they're saying that the TTCAA, the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority, they can be used as an avenue to collect data and disseminate said information. All right, I'm seeing here Ms. Ramke soon as well suggests that the civil aviation should really bring these groups together and divide the aviation sector into different departments and share information quickly and effectively. Is there any feedback from the panel in terms of the TTCAA in terms of their facilitation of bringing this this ecosystem together and really facilitating those discussions and, more importantly, actions?
Yeah, so I would tread lightly in terms of what we say in they should, but yes, we definitely recognize that there's need for a body to coordinate the activities. I mean, it can't be one-off consultations. Technology and occupations are changing too quickly, and of course, as we as this progress, we need somebody to be able to continue to regularly and structure, identify those labor market issues and promote between training and education institutions as well as government.
Thank you for that. We also see in here where it's being mentioned the responsible ministry as well is another potential candidate for such a policy, or I guess to bring the ecosystem together as well. Also, another comment, there is a governance gap in this regard. Maybe the Ministry of Labour, the champion for all things labor, should take the responsibility. Interesting comment there. And of course, it's a collaborative governance issue that is being mentioned in the chat here as well. Another comment here from Rohini Bihari. They can consider conducting standardized workforce surveys and audits to forecast technological skills and training gaps in aviation. That's a fair point.
Yes, I agree.
All right. Remember, you can continue to make your contributions in the chat. We do appreciate it. So thank you everyone who has been contributing thus far to the discussion today, as well as if you would like to be unmuted, just signal via the chat or use the raise hand feature.
Yeah, so
question from Mr. Phillips is asking if anyone from the TTC AA is here. Anyone from the Civil Aviation is a part of the meeting today. Sorry, Ms. Superbill, you can go ahead.
No, as I was saying, we definitely agree that we need to move from what is periodic consultation towards more continuous skills intelligence, industry identifying what is changing, what are the needs, researchers measuring it, educators responding to it, and of course, our government and policymakers enabling that response.
Excellent.
And I believe as well too, not only is conducting the workforce surveys and audits important, but we also have to have that participation as well too, because as you saw, our participation rate was 42%, I believe, in this industry. So we really need to get the participation as well too, so that we could really make informed decision making. It shouldn't be that you have to there should be some mechanism in place then that allows this cooperation in sharing information.
Yes, I would like to highlight the importance of information sharing. That was also mentioned in our previous webinar. And that there is a lot of data available. So maybe the surveys are not needed with that frequency. For example, there is data from labor market surveys with the CSO. The education institutions also collect administrative data, which is very useful. There are surveys with recent graduates. Some institutions do conduct them. And there's a real need of governance, as was mentioned here, of course, with respect of collecting, analyzing, and also sharing this information that is already available there.
Thank you very much to the panel for your responses and insights there. Certainly a very interesting discussion that we're having this morning. Now we have our final discussion question, and of course after that we will open the floor for any further comments or questions from the audience. Just to make mention of our feedback form, which is pinned to the chat. Before you leave today, we would ask you that you please give us some feedback. It's very valuable to improving future webinars and discussions. So the final discussion question today has to do with action. So we've heard, what could be done by different bodies and different organizations, but this one is really taking an introspective or internal look. What is one action for your institution or organization that could take in the next year, the next 12 months, to help strengthen the aviation workforce skills? What support will we need from other industries or other organizations as well? So it's really a twofold question. What can you do in your own organization? So maybe you have a business or some sort of institution that is in the aviation sector. So what can you do possibly in the next 12 months? And what support would you need from others to facilitate making that a reality? And this, of course, has to do with taking action and really strengthening those workforce skills. And once again, you are free to enter your comments or questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute for you to make your contribution. I know we have a vast cross-section in the audience today, so if there's one thing that your own organization or institution may be able to do, what do you think that is to really help as we go forward? Also, the panel is welcome to add any contributions here as well.
And this can be a different range of activities, such as like offering internships, and maybe in terms of universities, looking at expanding practical learning opportunities. For government, it could be providing grants and support for STEM participation in terms of scholarships. So there are a number of ways in which the stakeholders can contribute.
Thank you so much for that, Sharon. So
Yeah,
I've seen
and
a couple comments here. Okay, Akeem, go
just
ahead.
just to add to that, from a Nehu's perspective, one practical action, would be the sectoral conversations which we are going to have next, right? So another practical action would be like to convene a round table within the next 12 months, as you mentioned, bringing together the employees, the training institutions, the regulators, and the government to identify the priority skills gaps and to develop a action plan. So, we would need to share the current workforce and the vacancy information and the training providers to review the program alignment and government and regulators to support the coordination and the implementation of these things. That's from
Thank
our
you.
perspective.
So we have a comment from Rohini Bihari. Maybe they can consider piloting a short team specialized certification or a module focusing on emerging technologies such as drone piloting, aviation data analytics, and they can formulate it with technical experts in the field. It's a very, very interesting point there. Very good. And I think it's related as well to that discussion Akeem just mentioned in terms of really bringing the parties together to develop such. We have Dr. Ramuta or Ram Sundar, my apologies. I have a few webinars to introduce students to this stimulate interest, all right? So stimulating interest, and I believe that, that is also related to an earlier point in terms of what could be done from a young age, right? So stimulating interest is very good. Thank you for that, Dr. Ram Sundar.
And I would also like to add, with the findings, we at NIHIS, through our science education department, we are also hosting career fairs as well too, and career guidance activities, and using the findings and also investing in some of the well, not the emerging technologies, but purchasing or getting exhibits where we can actually show students the careers and display it in a more attractive and pleasing way to them as well too. So we are looking at that, at increasing that participation in STEM fields, and we are also hoping that we could actually map some of the career pathways as well too, as part of this exercise as soon as possible, so that we can include it into those career guidance activities.
Thank you for that, Ms. Parmanan. We have another comment here. One action to strengthen the workforce skill would definitely be training programs for employees. Provide the workers with lectures, training, internships for the 12 months, getting them even more accredited in the industry. It's an excellent point as well, and I think we would have touched on some of that. Another comment from Mr. Ram Logan, maybe contributing to exploring the TVET dimension further, engaging with our members in respect of current challenges, needs, preferences, etc., to inform improvements and alignment. So again, it's all coming back to bringing these bodies together in the ecosystem and really driving the discussion and more so the action coming out of that. Another comment here, and another thing that can be considered is an executive committee to kick off the baseline industry-wide workforce skills audit, which can be done within a 12-month period. Excellent. Thank you. And of course, just following up on the webinars idea, this is how ideas are built. Ideas are built upon other ideas. Not just webinars, but training camps with hands-on introduction experience to the field for students during vacation time. This is a good point as well. And we have a question. What is the mode of recruitment for this sector? Is this something that we have information on? What is the mode of recruitment in this sector? So definitely an important question here and something to look into.
Yeah. Sharon, you were going to say something?
No, you can go
I
ahead.
was just going to say that this would have been a little outside of the scope of the research or the study. You know, it was more focused on the skills, but not really recruitment models or modes of recruitment. So unfortunately, we don't have that data. It was not part of the scope of the research.
Thank you very much. But it is a pertinent question that, of course, we can do some looking into, and we encourage our guests as well to also let us know and share your feedback on it.
I think because too we would have a mix of private and public involved in the sector, it would also be a mix of the methods used.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So this is your chance as we turn it over to the audience. We have asked some questions. Of course, we would like to hear your questions as well for those who perhaps may have questions that have not been addressed already or separate and apart, but still within the vein of our aviation sector discussion today and the skills that are really needed to drive this industry forward. The floor is now open. You can, of course, pose your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and we will unmute you to give your contribution. So we do have a comment coming in here from Ms. Ramkisoon. I believe Trinidad and Tobago does not have enough aviation programs/courses for young persons. I wish UE would have greater aviation programs. Thankfully, UTT has some. Thank you for that contribution, Ms. Ramkisoon. So once again, folks, this is your opportunity. If you have any lingering questions about the key findings or any questions in terms of, or comments in terms of what actions can be taken based on these findings moving forward, this is your opportunity. And of course, all feedback is valued and being taken into consideration for future reports, work, and action and initiatives. So it doesn't seem as though we have any more questions. I know we had a pretty lively discussion segment, so persons may have ventilated their comments and questions at that point in time. There's a question coming in here from Mr. Ram Logan. He's wondering, where are we with the NQF-TT? Just noting one of the early 75% numbers regarding qualifications. National Qualifications Framework.
Yes, that sounds like a question for NTA, and I know that they were not able to join us today. They would have indicated that they had another pressing engagement. But of course, we can reach out to them to see if we can get that question cleared up and, of course, share the response.
Thank you, Mr. Superbird. Someone is making a comment here, Mr. Harper. I believe a few years ago, GATE doesn't fund these programs. I can't speak for presently, and I definitely can't speak for it either. I'm not sure this is something the panel also or the researchers would have looked into within the scope of this study, but it is an interesting point being raised here, because if there's need for development of skills in this sector, perhaps it's something that needs to be really drilled down into and looked at from a different perspective.
I believe too, once we further the discussions with the higher education institutions and the education stakeholders, we would be able to identify some of these gaps as well too, and get a clearer picture of what is available and what is not.
Excellent. So as Aki mentioned, we do have those stakeholder discussions, which will be featuring and bringing together those ecosystems in terms of getting feedback from the employers, the employees, and the different institutions. So these discussions continue, and thank you so much for your comments and your questions, because they will form part of those discussions going forward. Another comment coming in here from Ms. Bihari. Are there targeted incentives that NIHUS and MOE launched to break down barriers for young women in the field? And a follow-up, has there been any consideration where aviation concepts can be integrated into the existing CSEC key physics syllabus? And I think this may form part of that previous comment that I just made, where that roundtable discussion would take place.
Yes, as well as Sharon would have made mention of NIHIS inclusion of the careers and the skill sets that were highlighted in coming out of the reports through our science education program. So the areas that were highlighted in terms of the top careers within the aviation sector, as well as the future careers within the next 5 years, those things are integrated into our science education and STEM education career programs. So we have been promoting that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Superbill. Excellent. So folks, I want to thank everyone for your participation in today's session. Of course, we do have, as I mentioned earlier,
We have another comment, Kendall.
Oh, I've seen another comment here. We have a governing body, TTCAA. I don't know what power they have, but someone from that agency should have been invited to this program. So please consider this for further assessment meetings. Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Phillips, and definitely so. All right. So is there an email address or phone number to reach out to Sharon Parmanan? Ms. Parmanan, could you put your email address in the chat, please,
Sure.
if possible? All right, and of course, I encourage you to stay tuned to NEHIST on social media, as well as stay tuned to our website for upcoming sector discussions. All right, the Shaping the Future webinar series continues. The next webinar will be next week, Thursday. It's every Thursday. We are covering the 5 sectors one by one. Next sector discussion will be around tourism, and this will take place next week, Thursday, 3rd of September. All right, if you have already registered and you're here today with us, that means your registration is valid for all 5 webinars. So you don't need to register again. We will send you a prompt via email next week closer to the actual sector this webinar to just give you a brief reminder in terms of participation on the day and the actual meeting link. But if you do have other persons who you know are involved in the tourism sector and industry in some form or fashion that could benefit from these discussions or even contribute more so to the discussion so that we can really implement the feedback from all aspects of the sector, please send them the registration link. It is in the chat. All right, so please send them the registration link so that they can get registered as well and be part of our discussion next week. All right.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just responding, sorry, to Samuel Phillips, NEHIS would have sent an invitation to the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority. But if there's someone in particular that you are aware would attend, please feel free to share their contacts information with us as well too.
Definitely.
And also, Kendall, just a reminder for the audience to please fill out the feedback form. We see we only have 2 responses so far, but we really want to hear the responses so we can get better for the future webinars. So we encourage everyone to just take a couple of minutes to fill out the form, please.
And of course,
You can probably drop the link in the chat again.
Yes, Mr. Superbill.
I was going to say, if anyone, feel free to also share the webinar invitation to others who they think should attend or who may have interest as well.
Thank you. So the feedback form has been posted in the chat once more. So we ask everyone just to take a few seconds, shouldn't take more than a minute, just to select some responses in terms of your feedback and your perspective, your view on the session today. This, of course, as Aki mentioned, would allow us and really facilitate us to improve future sessions, taking your feedback into consideration, and also to improve in terms of the sector dialogues that would be upcoming. So please, we urge you to please just complete the feedback form, which is in the chat. Just click the link, and the feedback form should be there, where you should be able to complete it in very short order. And for those who have already completed it, we thank you so much for doing so. We appreciate it. So we'll leave that form open for a bit so that everyone can have the opportunity to complete it. As I mentioned, the next session would be next week, Thursday, 3rd of September, and we will be discussing the tourism sector. And as we wrap up today's session, obviously there are clearly important conversations and also actions to continue around the skills that we need to really realize the opportunities across the aviation sector, and for the persons who are in this sector, particularly the young people, to take advantage and benefit from them. So we continue this dialogue, we continue our work at NEHIST as well as the ILO. Thank you so much. And we encourage you to follow NEHIST and the ILO on social media digitally, as well as online, for upcoming sessions in this series, where we'll take a closer look at the findings across different sectors. For those who were in attendance today, we would be also sharing with you, as we did before, the sector brief and the link to the full sector reports so that you can have a look at it on your own time. All right. And in case you missed the live session, or someone you know could not attend the session today, I should say, there would be a post of the session later on YouTube as well. right? So you would receive that notification also. So thank you very much, folks. Thank you to our panel. Thank you to everyone who would have facilitated the discussion. And we encourage you, as Ms. Supervisor said, to share the registration link and the flyer with others who can benefit from these valuable discussions. And we encourage you to continue the great work that you are all doing in your own industry and sectors. Thank you very much for attending today. I'll see you guys next week, Thursday.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.